Morning.
Hello. It says Tim C. I was expecting a David.
Yeah, David should be on just momentarily.
Oh, okay.
My video doesn't work very well, so I figured I'd skip that. I seem to have some video problems with my Zoom stuff. Apparently, I've worn it out in the last year and a half.
I like to do these Zoom meetings because for me, telephone is essentially like black and white. With Zoom, I can show, I can switch cameras, I can get up here and teach, and I can, switch to my screen if I need to. And, I've got capabilities to show things that I can't do in, over a telephones. But so, having video on your side doesn't really matter. It's what you can see and hear on this side that really matters. Plus, who knows? You might be better looking than me, and that's not going to look good on YouTube.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Yeah, I'd expect he should be logging on anytime. He texted me to see if I was close.
It's no worries. I got actually over an hour scheduled for this if we need it. So
Says he's trying to get on right now. Let's see if he's got any luck yet or what. Whereabouts are you guys at?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Right on.
I've lived within 5 miles of where I'm sitting right now almost my entire life. Where are you guys out of?
So we're kind of all over the place. I live up in a little town called Sutherland, Oregon. So it's about an hour south of Eugene. And then I'm actually a Texas resident in El Paso. I changed my residency a couple years ago when we've been on a big project down there. Oregon taxes aren't exactly user friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to
Changed
have
everything around.
no state income tax. Yeah.
Yeah, 9%. That's a big one.
Whew.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but yeah, so kind of bounce between here and there, and then Cody. So,
What kind of work have you guys been doing?
So right now we're on a big border camp for ORR, unaccompanied minors. So we're working for a prime that we've worked with for since 2020, that does primarily, well, they do everything, but they're really big into man camps. And just in the last 2 years, they've been really big into ORR's unaccompanied minor program that's going on. So we've
Gotcha.
got, yeah, it started off as a ICF, and then now it's over a
Yeah,
permanent shelter.
now I remember who David is. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, he
So
called me up. He calls me up one day, and I said, "What are you currently doing?" He says, "Well, I'm finishing up a multi-million-dollar this, multi-million-dollar that, and we've been working for this prime federal contractor, and I'm interested in getting into the prime business as opposed to the subcontractor business." And he goes, "Yeah, we've done about $500 million worth of work in federal work as a subcontractor." And I'm going, "Well, holy shit, we've done $1 billion as a prime, but I've never heard of a sub that did $500 million worth of work." So
it's a pretty big, big project for sure. And obviously we're one of the key people. And I definitely, I mean, you know, the gentleman's a very close friend of mine, and I'm not looking to compete with him. I'm definitely more interested in the stuff that he's not doing and going after it. Um, Plus, I think he's going to retire here in the next couple of years, and he's got several IDIQs, which is great. And obviously, it's awesome to be part of that network. But at the end of the day, I don't know how long he's going to say, keep running before he probably will sell in the next 3 or 4 years, would be my guess.
that you're talking about the prime.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we're definitely kind of interested to hear what you guys have to say and see if it's a good fit, and then come down and participate with what you guys have going on.
Sure. I just sent an email to Doug, my dad. Together, we created the GCExperts workshop, which was a 3-day event that we held live in this office for many years. And, together we did $1 billion worth of work with the federal government. And then there was a boating accident in 2005. My brother had a golf ball sized portion of his brain removed, and we left the construction industry to focus on his recovery. And then in 2009, at the last recession, Obama issued the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, $150 billion, but there weren't enough federal contractors to eat the meat on the bone. And so my dad wrote this article. It's kind of a little bit of a long story, but he writes this article called "Show Me the Money." It's about the opportunity in the federal market. Well, that article got picked up by Commercial Construction Renovation Magazine, and a guy named Jacob Kroll read that article and contacted us, and he said, "Would you be willing to give a speech about the opportunity in the federal market to my 110 roofing and restoration contractors?" So we went up to Dallas, and then my dad, I call it the entrepreneurial brain fart. He says, "I'll take 10 companies into a room and I'll teach them everything you need to be successful in the federal market in a 3-day class." So we sell $100,000 worth of tickets to an event that doesn't exist. We're driving back to Austin, and I'm looking at him like, "What the hell? Why are we doing this?" And he goes, "I'm going to help these guys." So we did that. We went back, created the class, went back to Dallas, taught it to them, and I started tracking those guys, because if I've got your company name, I can look you up at usaspending.gov. So I started tracking all the guys that had gone through our program. Turns out they've gotten $1 billion in federal contracts. And so, yeah, our stuff works for sure.
Right on. Well, I know Dave was pretty stoked when he found you, and then after having a conversation with you, there's and I'm sure that you're more than aware of this. There's a lot of folks that say that they can hand you the keys to the gate, but like a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, like we're already doing.
Yeah, no, that's why I was trying to tell David in the phone call. Hey, David, Tim and I have been catching up here. But anyway, what I was trying to tell David in the phone call was, what you guys are really looking for is the five things that some of the stuff in the workshop for you guys is going to be just so rudimentary, it's going to bore you to tears. But there's going to be some advanced stuff in there, like how did we teach five different contracts on the third day of the workshop that we knew we were going to be the only bidder, and we bid accordingly, and we describe exactly how we knew we were going to be the only bidder. And then there's some things in day one and day two we talk about, such as the $100,000 letter, or in your case even the $1,000,000 letter. So one of the problems, David, that you're going to have going into the federal market is every once in a while you're going to bid a job where you're the only bidder and you're over 15% the government estimate. And we provide a tool to get the government to raise their estimate, raise their budget, so from the government estimator's position, so that it's more in line with inside that 15%. In other words, there's a few things that you're going to get from the workshop that you can't get anywhere else, and it's going to be worth the investment because for a company of your size, the dollar amount that we're charging for this thing is just ridiculously small. In fact, I was just on the phone last week with a guy who does $100 million a year in roofing, and he's like, "Why are you only charging $5,000 for this thing?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you price this thing at? Anyway."
No, that's all good, and I appreciate kind of the quick synopsis. David, I'm glad you could join us and to get your feet up off the couch. Apparently, he didn't hear you.
David, can you hear us?
Yeah, hello guys. I'm finally on. Having a little hard hearing Tim. I don't know if he's cutting out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you good.
I can hear Tim just fine.
Yeah, I can hear him good, but David doesn't probably need to be able to hear me. That's fine.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, Sean, if you want to kind of just start with just general overview information, I mean, or would you rather kind of hear what we're looking for or what we're trying to?
Kind of that, because I tell people in these Zoom meetings that really, contractors in general, okay, are constantly getting smoke blown up their ass. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and because of that, contractors in particular have finely tuned BS meters. And so really these Zoom calls are really only to determine two things. Is one, if I'm full of shit or not, and two is if I'm not, am I even the personality type that you want to go into, business with? And really it's just those two things. The money part of it, there is no, PowerPoint. There is no, if you buy now, there's nothing like that in these conversations. It's just, two guys have been around a long time in the construction industry having a conversation. So if you guys want to tell me what you're really interested in, or what you feel like you might be missing, you've got my attention for an hour. Ask me questions. I'll answer everything honestly and truthfully as I know them to be.
Hey, Sean, if I can jump in, the way I see it, there's a couple of things I know from watching your videos and what you're teaching. In general, it sounds like you're teaching mostly the construction federal contracts. We have done those as we've also done a lot of emergency restoration across the nation. We know that kind of is linked in events. And then we've also, as I told y'all before, we've done, large contracts through prime contractors with the government. And so in my mind, I'm looking at two different things with you guys. One, to see what you can offer on the construction side, see if that's something that we want to do, and if I don't think that you can't show us how to do that. It's a matter of us making a decision if we want to go into that realm and start down that road, more on the construction side, um, as a division, but also want to see if you guys have anything that will help us get to the prime contract status
Okay. Can I?
on all federal contracts, meaning construction, emergency services. You know, we did a lot of we did pretty much all the COVID. After COVID hit, we took in all the cruise ships. We built military campuses and bases all over the United States. We've done a lot of stuff with the government, but it's been through prime contractors. So we want to take that next step. We're not looking to compete with our prime contractors, but I know there's a lot of different menus within the federal
There is.
government. It's not just your construction that you're showing most of the guys. Most of them have no idea what the side we're on. And so we want to look at both and see how you can fit in and if you can help us on both.
Okay. So let me address them quickly because those are easy questions to answer. Number one, the only thing that makes you a federal contractor, a prime federal contractor, is a SAM registration. Are you guys registered with SAM?
Yes, multiple companies.
Okay. So you are a prime federal contractor if you want to be. There's nothing preventing you from bidding on any federal government construction contract. That's number one. Number two is, if you've spent any time on sam.gov, you should know by now that that website is probably the worst government website that has ever been created. Okay? And you're talking to a kid of the 80s that was programming VCRs for my parents to record TV shows. And I saw technology live as I was growing up become a reality. From, I saw my dad's first cell phone in 1986. And I've seen, to the iPhone 14 that we have today. And because I saw step by step every piece of technology that happened, and I was in the federal market for my entire career, when I looked at sam.gov and what they were doing and how contractors were finding work, I went, fuck that, there's a better way, and I built it. It cost $250,000 to build it, and it cost me $25,000 a month to maintain it. It's called Bid Tracker. Have you guys seen or heard about it yet?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I've listened to some of it on your video, and that's
So-
a monthly subscription, yearly subscription.
It is, and in your terms, it's cheap. It's $600 a month or $5,000 a year. I mean, it's nothing. But let me demo it for you. Okay, so what you're seeing is my computer screen, and I'm bringing up the Bid Tracker report. It's 50 solicitations per page, and they're sorted by the date that it's due. In other words, if I look over here, that says April 13, which are jobs that are due today. And you just come down and you look for projects that you're interested in. You click sync. You go, oh, I'm interested in that one. Sync. Oh, I'm interested in that one. Sync. How long's that taking, Tim?
Got it.
Not long, right? So you just
So
now.
is this syncing with like GovTribe, or is it something completely separate, or is it pulling off
This is my own invention. It's coming in from multiple places, but it's not scraping or anything like that. This is put together by human beings because we have found over the years that our federal government miscategorizes jobs. They're not perfect. And so what we do is we teach our guys to go into 36 different categories and find categorized construction jobs that might be in the aircraft parts category, but it's really a job that should be done by a contractor. And so you just come through here and you hit sync, and what's happening in the background is it's creating your bid schedule. So in other words, here's the jobs that are due on the 13th, here's the jobs that are due on the 14th, here's the jobs that are due on the 16th, here's the jobs that are due on the 17th, and then you go in there, and then here's the jobs you synced, and then you go in here, and here's the files to bid the job. How long did that take?
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so your site is pulling all that information from the other sites. You're
Yes,
sorting
it is. That's right. And then you choose which jobs you want to take a next step on, and that whole sync process takes 30 seconds. In other words, when I was in high school calculus, the teacher made this statement that you can't divide by zero. And I took that to heart, because then he said you can divide by numbers that approach zero. And I've been thinking about that for 30 years. When I was building Bid Tracker, I thought, we don't win every bid that we turn into the federal government. And because of that, we have a cost of procuring a federal contract. Now, I can never get that cost to be zero, but I can get it to approach zero, and that includes time. And so I tell people that for every 6 hours your competition is trying to find work on sam.gov, you're going to be spending 15 minutes, and that compounds over time. You just saw how fast that was. There's nothing that exists like that in the whole world, and it comes from a kid that was in the federal market for 30 years, but also understood technology and what the capabilities are today. So I built that shit. It's mine.
So does that just pull construction contract or construction, or is that everything that the government has? Is there different categories?
There are different categories. We can customize it, but right now it's made up of essentially 36 different categories, but only construction jobs.
Gotcha. Have you guys ever done any of the emergency service stuff through the government?
You and I, we have a difference of what you want your relationship to be with the federal government. So the way I describe it is marrying the government and dating the government. Okay? I want to do firm fixed price contracts where I go in and date the government. I don't want to be on multi-year deals, building camps and that kind of stuff. I don't want to marry the government. Now, that's not to say that one of us is wrong. It just says that we have different ideals as to how to get involved with the federal government. So, we've done multi-million-dollar federal contracts all over the country. Everything from wind tunnels, water treatment plants, kitchen renovations. I've done jobs that range from, 8, 10, 12, $15 million down to... my dad walks into my office one day and he says, hey. Oh, I can hear myself. That's weird. He says, hey, we got this new job. And he throws it on my desk. And I said, I opened it up and it's $7,500. And I went, why the hell are we doing a contract that has $7,500? He goes, no. Look where it's at. San Francisco? What? Why would you bid a job in San Francisco for $7,500? No. Look what's the work? And it says to replace an air conditioner in the rare book vault. And I looked at him and I'm like, what? He goes, don't you want to see what's in there? So, we spent $40,000 doing a $7,500 job so that my dad could go in there and see what is inside the rare book vault. I mean, we just...
So I got a question. Why are you teaching versus continuing?
Yeah, that's the old question. If you guys are so smart, how come you're not doing it? I love that question. And it's the story, right? And what happened was we were doing all this work all over the country. And then my brother was in a boating accident in 2005 and had a golf ball sized portion of his brain removed. I talk about it in that video and I show, he had a massive... So we actually just left we were done. I mean, we were just done. We were retired and done. And we focused on him. We invested $5 million putting him back together, about $200,000 a month. We brought in experts from all over the world, Russia, China, Australia, all over the U.S., and we put my brother back together. My dad looked at it like a construction contract. He said, I've been a project manager my entire life. I've got a time frame because they told us that the initial neurosurgeon told us that we had 2 years. Whatever you could accomplish in 2 years was basically how he was going to be the rest of his life. So we had a budget, a time frame. It was just like a construction contract. You just coordinate all the experts and bring them in, and you would put the team together, and you set a goal. His goal was, I want my son back the way he was the day before the accident. I don't care what happened. This is what the goal is. And so that's what we focused on. And then in 2009, the recession hits. Obama issues the $150 billion in ARRA, American Reinvestment Recovery Act, but there's not enough federal contractors to eat the meat on the bone. $47 billion of that ARRA money got pulled back into the general fund because there weren't enough federal contractors. So we came on the scene in 2010 when my dad wrote that article, and some guy asked us to go speak up in Dallas about the opportunity in federal contracts. And my dad says, I'll take 10 guys in a room for $10,000 a piece. I'll teach you everything you need to be successful in the federal market. I wasn't expecting him to say that. But you got to understand there's a difference between my dad and I. My dad cares. He cares about everything. He's a veteran. His dad was a veteran. His grandfather fought in the trenches of World War I. I was raised differently. I was raised from the perspective of my dad knew how to get a bunch of federal contracts. He wanted to raise somebody that knew how to get them done. So I became the executor, the guy that just gets shit done. Show me where the goalpost is. Whatever it takes to get there, I'll get there. Well, that turned out to be a great team as I came up through the business, because now he knows how to get a whole bunch of federal contracts. He's got somebody who's getting them all done. Well, then he launches this thing, GCExperts, and he cares. So he starts teaching people how to get federal contracts. And then he's like, well, do you want to design a business out of this? And that became GCExperts. It wasn't like we woke up one day and said, hey, we're going to teach everybody how to be, federal contractors. It was a natural progression of things that just ended up with us doing it. And to be honest with you, I've shown people in those videos, my house is 2 blocks from here. I got a pool, a hot tub, a guest house. I built a $30,000 outdoor bathroom. With a urinal in it and heated and air conditioned and everything next to the pool. I got enough money to go sit out there and drink beer every single day, but this is more fun.
Yeah, makes sense. Just have to ask, what drove you from the big dollars to the small dollars? Because I know you're not making the same.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Bid Tracker, it costs $25,000 a month. I've got about 50 members. So, 50 times, let's say $500 a month. Yeah, that's $25,000 a month. That covers Bid Tracker. Then every once in a while, someone buys a ticket to the workshop. And I've got my money. I've got retirement savings. You're making a return somewhat on that. But what do you really need in life,
Right.
So,
Tim, you got any other questions?
Yeah. So when you said that your bid tracker can be somewhat customized,
yes.
Is there we can have or we could see or have it set up, not see, because I don't really care about the background. All I care is about the product. Can we get it to where it produces those long-term marriage deals? Like that's what I'm really.
If it's available by the federal government, it can be incorporated into your bid tracker.
Got it. And that's something that you guys would set up, I assume, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
As an example, one of my clients, all he wants to do is sell furniture to the government. And so he's got a bid tracker report that just focuses on furniture to the federal government.
Got it. Okay.
Have you guys been involved with the IDIQ contracts?
Again, that's a marriage. So I'll tell you this. 10 years ago, a guy came to us that he focused on IDIQs and MATOCs. And he wanted to get involved in a MATOC and wanted to use our resumes as part of his MATOC. And our agreement with him was, look, whether it's a successful MATOC or a non-successful bid into the MATOC, we want a copy of the paperwork so that if anybody ever wants to go into one of these things, they'll see what it takes to get in on one. Because you can't get a copy of somebody's documentation for the solicitation as to what they actually turned in when they get, that's not discoverable under Freedom of Information Act, and we wanted that. So that was our agreement, and it turned out he was successful and he got into the MATOC. So we do have one full 400-page bid package for a successful MATOC that's available on our members-only website for people to go through if that's what they're interested in. To answer your direct question, no, we never did IDIQs, MATOCs, or any of those things because, again, that's a marriage with the federal government, and we wanted to date the federal government.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying, just trying to figure out, where we can fit together so we know what resources you have and don't have.
Sure.
So,
I mean, we did 1,000 federal contracts. Everything, any type of construction you can imagine, including aid to navigations where you go out in the ocean and you drive piles in the ocean and build platforms for the ships that are coming into port. I mean, we've done water treatment plants for Tinker Air Force Base. We've done generator change-outs all over the country, including on islands off the coast of California where the Navy SEALs train. I mean, we've done a lot of big stuff over the years and a lot of small stuff, including we've worked on at least 5 different presidents' homes from Lincoln, Adams, Grant, and others. We've done some unique things over the years, for sure. And we talk about them in the workshop.
right.
Do you mind touching base on basically when you're putting together these federal bids, since it's a little bit different than what we're doing? So we're typically putting together like a daily rate, and then however long the government decides to keep the faucet running, we're getting paid that daily rate. So obviously, in typical construction, we're putting together a firm fixed hard bid. What type of margins are your clients typically seeing? I mean, obviously they're just setting it. So if they want 1,000%, they may not get the bid, but they'll put it up with.
So typically it's 30. Typically it's 30 to 80%. Okay, but I tell people not to focus on that. What I tell people is to focus on the dollars per hour. At a minimum, when you're involved in a federal contract, I tell people you need to be getting at least $1,000 to $100,000 an hour. And I show multiple examples of how to achieve that. As an example, the very first email you got from us was to change out a 3-ton air conditioner. Did you look at that? Okay, how much does it cost, Tim, to replace a 3-ton air conditioner?
Not a lot.
Right, less than 15 grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I show indisputable proof in that first email that we got the contract for $107,000, made a couple of phone calls, and we get the difference between the 107 and the 15. Okay, so that's a good deal, and you just do a lot of good deals like that, and screw having crews out there working all day long. Why not just make a couple of phone calls, make $80,000, and move on to the next one?
Right. So if you're, and I knew this was a broad stroke question, but what's your percentage of bid work versus production work? Like
almost 100% bid work. Because look, on RFQs and RFPs, that the government, most contracts that come out from the federal government, firm fixed price contracts are either requests for quotes or requests for proposals. And then I describe in great detail on day 1 of the workshop in the afternoon what that means and how to incorporate that into your strategies. So those are all firm fixed price contracts. They're not productive work.
No. I meant, I don't know that you understood what I said. How many of the items that you bid come to contract jobs? You see what I'm saying?
Are you asking what our win rate was?
Yes, exactly. What's your conversion?
Okay, my dad was 1 in 23 over his career. I was 1 in 20 over my career. I've heard from my guys a number as low as 1 in 7, and I've heard as high as 1 in 35.
Got it, on their conversion rate.
Yep. And I have one guy that got 4 federal contracts in 1 day. That's never been beat or even equaled.
So typically on these construction bids, I assume they're providing all the data. You're not providing anything but numbers.
We don't tell the government how to spend their money. We just want to be the middleman between what they want done and the guys that know how to do it.
Right. Gotcha. Which is what we do every day. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, look, guys like you, I just look at this and I go, why are we even talking? Because it's $5,000. Who gives a shit? You're going to learn something.
Well, and that's why I went back to the original, kind of put it bluntly, is, to see what you offered, and if there was more than just the construction side of it. We've done construction. We've done quite a bit of construction. We've done it both in the private sector, insurance related, and we've done some federal work, but not a lot of the federal work on the construction side. So we haven't chased that avenue. I from watching your videos, I know that your vehicle will get us to that point. It's just a matter of if we want to make that decision to ride. We've got the concept. We know you can get us there. It's just a matter of whether we want to take our business in that direction. Our secondary was to find out
but what I'm
if you
saying,
had more.
If we had more what?
Say it again.
If we had more what?
What knowledge you had if you had any knowledge in the emergency service side of it, in the IDIQs, the bigger realm of what you would call the marriage side of it, and see if there was opportunity to learn more or help us there. A lot of those bigger contracts and those marriage contracts, as you would call them, there's a lot of technical writing and stuff that goes into those.
There is,
and
that May talk that we have will certainly be useful to you because you get to see how somebody proposed to get into one of those contracts. It's essentially the same thing in an IDIQ. But you got to also consider that in my membership program, and when I say the membership program, that's after the workshop, that's that $600 a month or $5,000 a year. You get access to Bid Tracker, but you also get access to all my paperwork, all the tools, templates, and technology that we developed over 3 decades, and that's the subcontract agreements, the purchase orders. Not that you guys don't have those, but ours was, all of our paperwork was specifically written from the perspective of being a prime federal contractor. And so it may be different from what you already have. And we've got some technical things in the paperwork that you may not be aware of. And like I said from the very beginning, what I'm not looking to do is slow you guys down. Like, in other words, it's okay if we don't do business. It's okay if you don't invest in the workshop. But I just want to make sure everybody's eyes are wide open that there may be some things in the workshop where you go, Jesus Christ, we already know that. Well, it's like Netflix. You fast forward a few minutes and maybe we're talking about something you never heard of before. But you know, it's not that I haven't had big contractors come in here. David Snodgrass is a perfect example. A guy does $30 million a year with federal contracts, comes into the workshop, and at the end of the workshop, he looks in the camera and he says, I only knew about 25% of what you guys were teaching. Well, that 75% that he was being exposed to, you know, whether that number's 60% with you guys or even 50%, that knowledge you're not going to be able to get anywhere else.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that we're looking for is a relationship with a technical writer to help us on that side of it. And we didn't know if there was an opportunity for where you guys might fit into that, but it sounds like
There
not
are
necessarily.
guys out there that do that. And if you're looking for a technical writer, you're right. You're not looking at the right place. You know, there are people that specialize in that.
Right. Sure. We just didn't know the extent of what you did, and so I think I'm very clear on what you have to offer and what you guys do. Tim, you got any other questions?
You know, on most of the GC construction bids that are coming out that you're looking at, I'm assuming they're just straight up firm fixed bid, stroke your number in, sign it, and send it. At the end of the day, there's no technical writing, there's no nothing.
Well, we provide a technical proposal, and I tell people that it's good up to the technical proposal that I provide, that I've written, is good on any bid up to probably $1.5 million. Above $1.5 million, the government's just going to be looking for more information than what my technical proposal provides. Okay? I mean, I guess it could be stretched out to work for maybe an $8 million federal contract, but I mean, if you guys are going after a $20 million deal or an IDIQ or a MATOC, you're going to be looking for somebody that can specialize in on what all the requirements are, get all the data together, because the government's going to be going through all that shit. It's going to take months for them to review the pool and narrow it down. And, you know, I mean, I don't know what you guys are currently making per hour of your time if you average it out over a month, but you know, there are easier ways to make money than doing that whole process, running crews, being on top of everybody, being the project management asshole that has to make sure that, hey, you know, you have 3 days to get yourself back up to schedule, and if you don't, I'm going to be calling another crew, I'm going to be bringing in, I'm going to be back charging you. There's all these headaches associated with that kind of stuff that, you know, is it really worth it? But that's a decision for you guys, not for me.
Sure.
Right. I don't have any other questions, David. I think at the end of the day, it's just we need to discuss what direction we want to head in. I think this is a good fit for what they offer. I mean, I can kind of tell that.
Right, Sean. One other question. So, on your class, how do you present that? Is it through a Zoom?
It's like Netflix. I'll give you an example. Okay, here's an example. This is a few minutes of footage from day one of the workshop.
And then put the BIG over the opportunities. Big problems equal big opportunities. If somebody needs something and they really need it, they're desperate to get it done, you understand that's the opportunity you're looking for, the need. Okay? You focus on the need. Everything gets focused on the need. What's the need? Do you have a budget? Once I understand the need, I focus on it, I understand it, repeat it back to them. Is there anything else you want to elaborate on? Or anything else I should know? Okay, problems like that usually have a budget associated with it. Can you share that with me? Do you understand how we go from the need, fully understanding the need, and then to the budget, figuring out what the budget is before we go any further, right? In fact, I don't even mind telling them, look, George, the real purpose of my business is to get new clients, satisfy their needs.
And here's a few minutes of day two.
Cost. At a level that means...
See, I don't have to tell them how much. I just have to use the word, what's the FAR say?
cost. So I told him, we had cost. And he said, you did? Can you see from his perspective, we didn't? But I said, because what did we do? Nothing. I said, yeah, we had cost. He said, well, okay, send it over. We'll look at it. Okay? So then I told Seth to come up with his costs. He had to consult an expert on what to do with this problem, so I sent over a bill. Okay? He had conversation, he had cost of procuring a federal contract. And I specifically told him, how much was his contract amount? I told him that I wanted his costs to be $7,200 in the sheet. I told him I wanted his cost to be more than the contract amount. Okay? So he puts that together, and then I put
And here's a couple minutes of day 3.
This is the genius part. I know the other part.
Do you remember me saying that the rule was if there's only one bidder, and that bidder is 15% or more above the government estimate, they cannot award the contract? Why does our government, in their infinite wisdom, have that rule? Protects tax dollars, right? Because Sally, what's she trying to do? Get George's job done. He needs it. It's his money. He went and asked for it to fix his fish hatchery. It's sitting on her desk. He needs it done. It's not going to get done until she finds a contractor she can award it to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So suddenly somebody turns in a bid for $1 million. And it's only $100,000 worth of work, and they got all this money left over in the budget. And it's real easy to just, man, we can just push that money out
And
the
so
door.
that's what it looks like. And my dad has
So
accepted the invitation to be part
so
of
this is a come to Austin and sit down class, or is this something y'all?
It was. Understand that what you're seeing is, look, for 10 years in 2010 when we started teaching this, I was recording the events as they happened. And then the pandemic hit and I couldn't bring people in the room anymore. Well, if you can't bring people in the room anymore and you still want to teach them, I just went back to the video recordings I already had and I put it on the internet in a Netflix style. Like it literally looks like this. So day 1 is 10 hours, day 2 is 11 hours, day 3 is 7 hours. This is just a little update video I made recently, but it's like Netflix. You just hit play, you can pause it, you can come back. You know, it's just like Netflix.
Right. So the initial class is 28 hours, 29 hours of video that you're selling, and then if you want to move forward from there, it's a membership into y'all's class to get on board with all the data and the tools.
Correct. Plus, you get access to Doug and I. In other words, 24/7 phone access. If you got any problems, in fact, what my dad tells people is that you can't have a problem on a federal contract that we haven't already had and come up with a brilliant solution to. And by the way, it's your problem until you call us. Then it's our problem, not yours.
Okay.
How you doing, David?
How you doing?
All right. I've got
My dad has to plug his microphone in. He's done this before, and I yelled at him after we got off that he doesn't have good sound.
all right. Is that any better?
Way better.
Yeah. I can't complain. It took me about 5 minutes to get lined out here. My computer decided to download updates before I could get on. So.
Yeah, been there. Plenty of
But
times.
Dad, if you'll remember, this is the guy. He's the largest subcontractor I've ever come across. He's done over $500 million in federal contracts as a sub. Is looking into the federal market as a prime. He is SAM registered. They do work all over. They already understand the whole system. They are a little bit more interested in IDIQs and MATOCs and long-term relationships with the government than I would prefer, or maybe even you would prefer. But that's not to say that we don't have IDIQs and MATOCs in BidTracker. There are tons of them. It just depends on which avenue you really want to go. And we're having an absurdly long conversation over whether they want to go into this direction or not. Tim seems to be on board with the concept. I think David is still trying to make up his mind.
Hey, David, I can make this real simple for you. I started out as a subcontractor, and when a guy took me for 20 grand and I went to file a lawsuit, he filed bankruptcy on me. In the meantime, I was learning how to do federal contracts. I went to Bernie Beck, owned his own bank, and said, hey, I need to borrow 20 grand. And he said, why? I told him the story. And he said, well, how are you going to pay me back? And I said, well, I'm only going to do federal contracts. And he kind of looked at me like, well, why? I said, because they're the only people I know, when they run out of money, they just print more. And if I got a direct relationship with them, I don't have to worry about getting paid. Now, that said, we've had guys in our group that were subcontractors and come back to us on federal contracts, times not paying them properly or not paying them at all. I got one going right now with one of the guys that I'm in my mastermind group. We're doing a project in Missouri, a historic house built in 1790 for the National Park Service. And I was on another job, was a sub not only for him on a federal contract, but for, I won't mention the name, but another company that one of our other guys didn't get paid from. Ended up in a lawsuit, settled for 10 cents on the dollar. And I said, hey, what do you tell this guy? I said, tell him, be a prime contractor, don't be a subcontractor. Know how the system works, integrate your business in with the government. And as far as the relationship, one of the first things you're going to get when you sign up in a pre-workshop email is an article I wrote specifically for people that want to do what I do, which was over $1 billion in federal contracts. And it's called Building Out Your Federal Circle of Influence. It was how I got 150 contracting officers out of the 9,000 plus that there are. But I got them in a system where I was maintaining a relationship with them, and I detail out exactly how I was doing it. And if you have any questions about that, once you get signed up, pick up the phone, call me, I'll walk you through it. But I got literally millions of dollars in federal contracts from the government with a phone call.
Yeah, sounds good. I completely get it. Tim and I will meet and talk and discuss it and see if it's just a matter of if we want to take it in that direction. So I think what you're selling is good. I think there's knowledge there that's definitely needed and helpful if we decide to go that direction. So yeah, I appreciate your time and we'll get together and be back in touch.
Yeah, Sean can give you some videos of guys that have been doing only federal contracts. One of them comes to mind is David Snodgrass. Been doing federal contracts.
I told him about David. So
yeah, but I mean, there's a bunch of guys that the guy down from Florida, the big tall guy that was owned part of the roofing company, he said, I've been doing federal contracts for 30 years. And I didn't know 70% of what you taught in this workshop, right?
yeah.
You kind of talked or hit on it seems like the sweet spots that 1.5 or less size job, 1.5 million or less job. Is that kind of somewhat accurate, or is that kind of paraphrasing the conversation?
No, I've done projects as little as 7,500. Sean can tell you that story because he was appalled that I would do that. So I made him look at where it was. It was a very unusual place that I had never been before. And I said, you can't, how are you going to get there unless you have a contract there? And we probably spent $30,000 taking the whole company because we could go into this extremely exclusive area, the rare book vault of the San Francisco Maritime Museum, because we had a contract there, right? Same thing with NORAD. You know, I watched a movie in 1985, I think it was called War Games, Matthew Broderick, and I'm sitting there with my wife, and we were coming out of the movie, and I said, "Hey, would you like to go inside NORAD?" She said, "We can't go in there. That's all top secret." I said, "Sure we can. I'll get the next contract there." So I made her my personal assistant. We had a guided tour through NORAD. And then about 25 years later, one of my guys got one there, didn't know how to do it. Called Sean up and I said, "Hey, you're never going to get inside NORAD unless you come with me." So he went up there and helped me do that job for him, just because I wanted to go back and show him what I had done up there. But yeah, there's things that you're going to get to do, see, and realize once you start taking these projects and build these relationships up yourself, where you're not dependent on somebody else being a middleman and they're just telling you what to do. You get a lot more control over your life. And but you know, hey, to each his own. If you're making plenty of money and you're happy where you're at and you can't imagine life better, hey, I got no problem with people living the life that they want, right?
No, and all that's great. I was really kind of more going with, I'm assuming that there's opportunities in the 10, 15, 20 million range too.
Yeah, the
Of
biggest
course.
project I did was $18.5 million, and we made about 30% margin on it. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the largest one I've done, but I've seen them out there 30, 40, 50 million dollars that had plenty of margin in the projects. But you know, over time, I started figuring out that there were plenty of projects I could make 100 grand on in 1 week, and I didn't have to do any of the work. And you know, if you send me a text, I'll send you 4 or 5 little videos that I ended up making of these things. In less than 2 weeks, we made 100 grand. You just quick in, get out. One of them, I spent the whole week up there just because I wanted to get it done in 5 days. And it was, they really needed somebody with my expertise, level of expertise. And I had committed to the government, if they awarded it to us, that I would personally be there to make sure everything went perfectly. And then that guy became one of the best references, you know, for other contracts. You know, I tell contracting officers, "Hey, just call Fred out there at the Air National Guard in Long Island. He'll tell you what kind of a contractor I am." And the next thing I know, 15 minutes later, they're awarding me a contract, right? So yeah, the relationships are important. But you know, there's an old saying that, you know, everybody thinks that they want to learn how to do something, but the reality is you're a lot better off knowing who to get something done, right? Who, not how. And I think a guy actually wrote a book about that called Who, Not How, right? So you got the who, the guys here, and we're going to get how to do the how and to have every step of the way when you need it. But yeah, you got unlimited opportunity when you're deciding what projects you want to do, where you want to do them, and you get the contracts directly. I mean, think about it. Every contract that you were a subcontractor on, who was making all the money? You were doing all the work, but how much was the prime making if you're doing all the work? It took me 20 years to figure this out, David. So I'm going to give you a little secret here. You can jot this down and take it to the bank. It took me 20 years to figure it out. Because when I got out of the Army, I thought it was unemployable, so I started doing construction work because I could get paid for my time. And I got a master electrician's license, a plumbing license, a master HVAC mechanics license, NEBB test and balance certification, so I could do my own test and balance. Got my own controls company, so we could do controls. Sean spent a whole year out of Goodfellow Air Force Base because I had a contract to put building automation controls in 58 buildings. I said, go out there and run the whole job. Learn all there is to know about controls. In 1 year, you're going to know controls, right? But I was always looking for the first 20 years, what kind of job do I know how to do that I can go do? At about the 20-year mark, Sean's coming up, and I'm telling my guys, teach him how to be the best guy that knows how to get things done. And I started figuring out that, hey, everybody's a middleman. Everybody's a middleman. All I had to do was, I got really good at getting the contracts, and I had been out there doing them. So when I was doing them, I wasn't really getting them. But now that I had a team and I had a son that could get them done, Now all I had to do was focus on going out and getting it. And within 9 years, we went to $100 million a year, doubling every year in revenues and profits. Because the mental shift from going, wait a minute, I'm just a middleman. All I want to do is get the contract. I know how to get other people to get it done, and I can focus on the relationships and getting the contracts. And that will be a mental shift that you and your partner need to talk about. Do we want to make that mental shift? Do we want to be the guys out in the field doing the work all the time? Or do we want to be in control of our destiny, get really good at getting the contracts, and then we already have teams that can get them done, but we can follow the logic of how Doug and Sean teach to get other people to do things. I mean, I haven't left Austin, Texas, other than to visit friends and family in a number of years. But yet right now I've got projects going in Hilo, Hawaii at the Agricultural Research Center, a Canelo Ranger Station renovation in Elgin, Arizona, in Missouri, that 1790 Amarillo house, you can look it up, it's a famous house for the National Park Service. We're replacing 7 boilers at the prison in Pekin, Illinois. We just got another solar system from the Corps up in Wisconsin. We did one last year in Minnesota. They just called us up. They said, we want you to do the same thing in Wisconsin. No problem. And I've got a project with one of my mastermind group that's $864,000. We're making over 400 grand on, and Cone Crane's doing all the work at Montgomery Dam in Pennsylvania. And, you know, if you really want to hear, if you got an extra minute, I'll tell you how that contract came about.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll have that conversation after they invest in the workshop. How about that?
Okay.
I gotta move on to my next Zoom.
Okay. Hey, I'm here for you, David. Wish you all the best, no matter what you decide. And just know that, hey, we really want to see you guys be a prime contractor, and where you're controlling what's going on.
Sounds good. We appreciate your time, and we'll be back in touch.
Okay, take care, David. See you, Tim.
All right. Talk to you later, Sean.
Thanks for coming on, Dad. Bye.
Sure.